Hello and welcome to my video today where I talk about simple mail transfer protocol out of my networking basics series. I'm Wolfgang Tremmel and I run the DE-CIX Academy. If you're interested in more video, networking basics or BGP border gateway protocol, white papers or other downloadable content, just head over to the DE-CIX website /academy and have a look. So let's get started with my presentation today. Like I said, talking about SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And this is part of my Networking Basics series where I already introduced Ethernet, the IP protocols IPv4 and IPv6, where I talked about routing, also about UDP, TCP, ICMP, also about the domain name system. And today, this is the first part where I talk about protocol on the application layer. Remind you about the internet layer model. We have layer 3, that's the IP layer or internet layer, where we have the protocols IPv4 and IPv6. One up on layer 4, the transport layer, we do have UDP and TCP. TCP providing flow control, reliability, congestion avoidance. UDP providing none of them. But they all both may contain information about the next layer up, like port numbers. So now today, the first protocol on the application layer. The application layer depends on the transport layer by usually either using UDP or TCP as transport. It contains all kinds of communication protocols for transferring data like emails or web pages or files or video streams. And it is used for communication between applications across IP networks. On the application layer, we see both client-server, server-to-server, or peer-to-peer relationships. That's all possible. And there are many examples of protocols on the application layer. I'm starting today with email. Well, a little bit of history. Email is one of the oldest still in use applications of the internet. And if you here look at the right-hand side, that's like an email client looked in the 1980s. And a little bit of personal history. I started my internet career as a postmaster at my university. Postmaster was a real person taking care of the email system and also helping users who searched for email addresses at a specific site. They just sent an email to Postmaster and somebody answered and pointed them to the right email address. And that someone was me. And email still heavily in use, but it has been extended quite a lot since the beginning. The number of RFCs, request for comments, kind of internet standards mentioning mail is 483. So of course this presentation today does not cover everything. We are focusing here on the transfer of email. So transporting mail messages from one server to another. And there's a protocol for that. And this protocol is called SMTP. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. SMTP was introduced in 1981 in an RFC number 788. And if you have a look at my slides here, since I couldn't find any meaningful pictures for SMTP, I added some pictures about historic mail transport. So talking about SMTP, when it's a simple mail transfer protocol, was there also a non-simple one? And yes, there was. A predecessor of SMTP was called Mail Transfer Protocol and was defined in RFC 772. They are all public. You can just read up, or you can have a look at the downloadable PDF of this talk. At the end, I have added some links to the most important RFCs. The latest standard of SMTP is in RFC 5321, and this was defined in 2008. So SMTP, what does it do? Well, the name says it. It transfers email. It transfers email both from servers to servers and also from users to servers. The transfer of email from a user to a server, it's also called submission. And sometimes it's a little bit different, but in fact, it's kind of the same protocol. SMTP does not transfer email from server to users. There are other protocols for that, which I might cover in another video. SMTP runs on TCP, and it runs on the well-known port number 25. And that was the standard port from the beginning until today and is still in use. For the submission of email, so for a user sending email for the first time to the internet, also the TCP port 587 is in use, and also 465 for encrypted submission. But for the transfer of email between systems, it's always port 25. So when we talk about the email transfer, we have to talk a little bit about how an email is structured. What a lot of people don't know is that the email also contains some invisible elements. The most prominent visible elements of an email are, of course, the header, which contains fields like subject, from, to, or message ID, and it contains a lot more, which is often hidden by your email client, but you can make it visible. Just check your documentation. You can always view the full header if you want to. And it contains of the body. Well, that's what you wanted to send, the content of an email. But email also has a kind of an invisible component, and that's what we call the envelope. That's some information which is exchanged when an email is being forwarded between two systems. Let's have a look at the standard email header. Like I said, we have here the fields to, from, and subject, but the most of it you do not see in your email client. The email body, also the interesting thing is email SMTP is a text-only transport protocol, so no binaries. But hey, you can send attachments. Yes, you can, but because these binaries are encoded as text, they're encoded using a standard called the MIME standard and an encoding methodology usually called base 64. Just download the PDF of the talk and click on the links to get more information about that. Talking about the so-called envelope of an email, that's data mail servers exchange before the actual email is being transmitted. And the minimum content of the envelope is the name of the sending email server, the email address of the originator of the email address or addresses of the recipients, and sometimes optionally also the size is included in the envelope. So that's exchanged before the actual email is being transferred. A few other stuff, well, I call that simply other stuff. Just have a look at the IRCs. It's not really important. Important are the three mentioned here: sender, originator, and recipient. And this information is exchanged using SMTP. The SMTP protocol, well, it has simple in the name, and it's really, it is a simple protocol. All SMTP interactions between systems can be read as text. So there is, in its purest form, no binary. The sender uses commands. Well, they used to be just 4 letters long, and the receiver uses error codes 3 digits long. That's SMTP. It's very simple. And it starts here with EHLO. Well, that sounds strange. The original command was hello. Well, 4 letters long, so it couldn't be hello. And for the extension of SMTP, they just swapped the letters around a little bit. And here we see the error codes or the success codes, and you can already guess that 250 means, okay, there is no error. So what commands does SMTP have? At first, the sender needs to identify itself with his host name. So he sends EHLO host name, like here, and the receiver answers with a 3-digit status code and a list of its capabilities. And you might, if you have a look here at this list, this example list, you might see that at the last line, the dash after the 250 is missing. So that's basically, that's telling the other side, well, this is the last line. Remember, it's just exchanging of text. SMTP is text-based. Yeah, after the identification, the sender starts the transmission of an email. So the command used for that is mail from, followed by the originator of the email. Then the next command is recipient to, and that's the one recipient of the email. Recipient to can be repeated if there are more than one recipients. And then the sender says data, and the email starts. And then first the header, a blank line, and then the body of an email is being transmitted. And at the end, a dot alone on a line marks the end of an email. So it's really a simple protocol, and you can do this. You can emulate an SMTP sender with your keyboard. So here we have again some information how it ends. Well, at the end, we can start the next email, putting in another mail from, or we can type quit and end the TCP connection. The 3-digit status codes, there is all defined in the RFC. The first digit basically says if it's success or failure or temporary failure. So 2 stands for success. The 5 in the middle stands from the email system, and the 0 stands for no additional information. Like I said, you can type that in, and let me show you how that goes. So I'm doing a telnet to port 25, and I type in help first, getting all the commands which are possible. Then I identify myself with HELO and with EHLO, just to show you the difference. EHLO gives you the capabilities. Then I start my email by typing in mail from and an originator address. I type in recipient to and a destination address, and data, well, I just put in test and end all that with a dot. The email is accepted, but most likely goes to the spam folder. And that's it. That's SMTP emulated from a keyboard. And you can try it out yourself with your keyboard. Just have a look at the presentation. Well, having a look at that, this doesn't look very secure, or does it? No, it's not. SMTP in its original form misses any kind of security. At the beginning, when SMTP was defined, nobody cared about security. Connected to the internet were a couple of government agencies, a lot of universities, and they were all friends with each other. Everybody trusted each other. And SMTP is from that time. That means email senders could and, well, still can be easily faked. You can type anything into the envelope address. Any system could and can send email to anybody. There is no verification of an originator or sender. Over the time, security features, of course, were added to SMTP. Nowadays, there is encrypted transmission. Encrypted transmission means that the transmission between two systems is encrypted, not the email itself. That's still a text file. TLS, transport level security, is started with the command, which no longer has 4 letters, start TLS, and this was defined in 1999. Remember, if you read that, it only protects the transmission of the email against listening in between. It doesn't protect the content of the email at the recipient. Also, authentication was added in 1999 to make sure only authenticated user can submit email to certain sites. And there were many, many more additions. Just have a look at the list of RFCs. Good. Conclusion. What did we talk about today in this video? We talked about SMTP and email. SMTP is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and that's a text-based protocol on the application layer. It's spoken via TCP to port 25, and it is one of the oldest but still in use protocols on the internet. Over the years, SMTP has been extended multiple times. And if you implement SMTP today, it is highly recommended to enable all security features like TLS and authentication. Emails themselves, they can be faked easily unless you add additional security features at the client side, at your computer, at your mobile device, to make sure your emails are encrypted or authenticated. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll think about this presentation the next time you send an email. I'm Wolfgang Tremmel, and this is Networking Basics from the DE-CIX Academy. Thank you and bye-bye.